I'm actually so excited, Crystal, for you to be here, for you to meet Katie, because I have sort of dropped little, I don't know, like little hints about some of the things that have gone on in your life recently. Katie doesn't know the whole story, and so obviously nobody else that's listening to the podcast knows the story. But before we get into it, I usually we talk through, someone's background and that kind of thing. And Crystal actually sent me a little bio. And so instead of like kind of pieces part, I'm just going to read it because I think
Oh,
it's
you
really
are?
cute.
I was hoping
Yes.
you would add your flair and edit it in
Well,
whichever way you see fit.
No, I just think it's just really cute. So this is Crystal. So it's almost like I'm introducing Katie to you, Crystal. Mother of three boys, originally from Texas, then moved to Southern Nevada through her college years, became a convert to the Mormon church at 15. That's a whole episode right there.
Whole episode.
Married at 18 and then was married for 21 years. That produced her three children. Practiced as a licensed dental hygienist for several years and now is a sales manager for a global dental company. So she's a big boss. She travels. She's got a whole team of people outside of her team of children. After her marriage ended, she had an identity shift out of religion and onto a spiritual path, managing a demanding career, and as the family breadwinner and full-time co-parenting mother with a zest for life. She has been thrown into the dating world at the age of 38 and now 42, has had some wild stories and some lessons learned along the way in healing, growth, and the journey of self-love amongst the comedy show that is today's dating world.
Right.
Which, we are all, I guess, I could say single technically. We all have some stories. My biggest thing that Katie and I discuss, which is no one is who they say they are, I feel like. And so that's been my experience. And, you can't be, 50, well, for me, 50 something, you ladies are in your 40s, but still dating at this age, regardless of the men that you're dating, or if you're dating women, whatever it is, everyone has a mixed bag. They have a bag of tricks. They've got history, they have trauma, they have stuff they're dealing with, co-parenting, maybe multiple fathers. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
So we all have our shit basically to deal with. But I try to pride myself on showing up to situations and being who I am. I don't pretend. I don't kind of do this bait and switch kind of thing. And, you seem normal and then all of a sudden you're really a crazy biatch. That's not me. And I think we all know people who are like that, as well as men, as well as women. I try to live an authentic life. And Katie, I met Crystal this year and through another friend, through another Katie. And I learned of a little bit of her dating story here recently, which blew my mind. And it kind of had us all in this situation where we were stunned, surprised. There were so many emotions, and we were at my house one day talking through it, and we were like, what? And then this happened. The story just got bigger and bigger. So
it was like a royal catfishing.
Royal catfishing. Yes.
Seriously. And, we hear about that more and more.
Sorry. Just first and foremost. I feel like this is... Karen's treating your life like entertainment fodder. And you're like, bitch, I actually suffered. So I'm glad you're excited.
But we kept saying, like, are you serious? And then this. And so going through asking questions. And
it was a bit disorienting and a little bit scary, right? Because you developed
and I
this.
Have
very
to say,
scary.
And we will probably get to it that we were thinking, like, what is this person capable of? Because we've all watched the Datelines. We, to the point where, we'll get to it, we're insisting on, like, you need to call us when you get there. You need to put up cameras. Like, so she went these things. So
she's still giggling. I'm not giggling. I'm terrified. What the fuck is wrong with you,
that's
Karen?
How it was. Because me and the other Katie were like,
all you can do is laugh at this point.
I'm already traumatized for you. I don't even know anything. And Karen's like, get a load of this. Get a load of this. It's going to be so fun.
You hear
and I'm like...
this.
Hey friends, welcome to the Separated at Birth podcast with your hosts Katie Martin and Karen Burke Brown. This is the podcast where we find alignment in the most unlikely places, proving that lightning can strike anywhere at any time. We'll weave together a world of middle-aged empowerment as single moms, businesswomen, and creatives. Finding alignment, navigating relationships after divorce, raising kids, building businesses in the creative space, and doing the hard work of unearthing our very best selves in the process and having a lot of mother effing opinions about it. We're so stoked to have you here, so let's go. Let's get into the episode.
Crystal, I think you get to a point in your life where I think we invite people, we talk about manifesting, how important that is, like knowing who you are, and you sort of surround yourself with your tribe and your people. And I met Crystal and I was like, oh yeah, she's like a regular mom. Like, we all have these crazy stories, but we're all still out there making money. We're still out there living our lives, taking care of our kids, and we're not walking around with a chip on our shoulder. And, you know, you still believe in love. And, you know, I know you guys are still dating. But so it's just one of those things that, like, you still go out there with, you know, a hopefulness.
An open heart.
I love that Karen just says, I've sworn off this shit. I've sworn off it, but y'all have fun with all your traumas.
You just let me know and I'll just be here to listen.
What is that shit? I'm irritated with you this morning, Karen, and I can freely say that because you're stuck with me. We're not getting a divorce. This is the friendship to the end, but I can be like, you're irritating. You're obnoxious right now.
I can just sit back and be like, oh, so what happened on your date? This, like, I can live vicariously through everyone else. You know?
Right. This is your, you know, Crystal's your like private Netflix show right now. She's like, I'm living through this hell. Okay, well, can we let Carol? Let's let her tell the story, maybe.
I'm like, and then,
Like, no, go ahead, Karen. No, it's
So you started dating. So you've been on dating apps, and we've all, and I will dip my toe.
Can I ask a few preliminary questions?
Yes, please do. Let's set the stage. Yes.
Because this is, I'm in a
That's
cold
why
read
it's like
right
a cold
now.
read for her. That's why I'm
Cold
like, okay,
read.
I want her to just let it like happen and have her be like, wait, what? Because that's how
I know of you is my friend Crystal got royally catfished and fucked over. That's what I know.
Okay.
So, and she's also a single mom of 3, just like Karen and just like me. So I'm pulling up a chair to this conversation. You know, I'm a raging empath. So anything that comes out of your mouth, I'm going to be like, you're going to slay me. I'm going to feel it all. I'm going to feel everything. So I'm trying to prepare myself too for the therapy I'm going to need after hearing all of this. So
it's a great story. So I will just say.
So how old are your children now?
Okay, yeah.
So
as this was happening, I need context there.
So my children I have 3 sons. They're 17. One just turned 15, and then one's turning 12 this week also. So
do they have judgment about you dating?
You know, my older boys do not. They have been, you know, they're kind of naturally at a point in their lives where they're, you know, selfish and should be.
Yeah.
And figuring out, you know, I know, right? Just figuring out their normal selfish behavior, but in a great way, you know, just independent. So they're more worried about their lives. But my youngest son, he was not a fan of the idea. He's like, I don't like him from the get-go without even having met him, right? Like, so that tells me that he just...
No matter who you bring around.
Right, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had some resistance.
Have you had any other relationships prior to this? Jackass?
No, so this was my first sort of, I would say, long-term, real kind of relationship in terms of integrating children.
Wait till you have 2 or 3 long-term relationships that don't work out, then your kids will be judgmental as hell.
Right.
Even
And
more
I
so.
think I can just steer it off for a few more years because they're on the tail end. But, you know, yes. And so I think that that's a part of the heartbreak too, right? Because you introduce your children and, you know, and sort of have hopes and dreams of what, you know, it could look like to potentially integrate. This particular man had 3 children of his own. And so, you know, you're doing that whole thing. And then when it doesn't, you know, you have to look at your kids and kind of, and for me, I'm
been there.
Open and authentic and you know, tell them. But yeah, so that is hard when your kids are involved. And even, anyway, that's a whole nother story, but, you know, he has a daughter whom I don't have any daughters, and we were really close, you know? And so occasionally she'll text me and, you know, and it's like sad, you know? Yeah. Cause they don't ask for that.
Katie has been on the other end of the phone when I'm bawling because of the relationship lost with children who, you know, I was dating someone for 3.5 years, and I was close to I mean, you know, you do things together, you travel together, so it's, you know, just this year, bawling on the phone to Katie and like
their ability to build trust, because all of a sudden, because the relationship ends between the two of you, they feel like, oh, well, that person is now gone. I didn't have closure. I didn't, you know, of my own. And so
it's not fair to the kids. It's so that's another reason I'm like,
so many layers to divorce and dating. That it's just not fair to your kids at all. They didn't sign up for any of it. They didn't ask for any of it. This is your shit sandwich, not theirs.
Right.
And you have to carry on and do the best you can.
And navigate that is healthy.
Navigate that and continue to provide like support to them, which is separate from the support that you need.
Right.
It's a mixed bag of
how
shit.
How did you meet this gentleman?
So let me back up a little bit and start a little bit just with my just a brief synopsis of my marriage, because I think that it adds a little context. So
teed you up.
Yeah. So for me, you know, I had mentioned in the bio, so I, you know, was converted to the Mormon church when I was 15, because I was originally from Texas, moved to Southern Utah, and there's a big influence of Mormonism there. So in my family, some of them were. And anyway, so I was converted when I was 15 and, you know, drank that Kool-Aid, and then decided my biggest, you know, goal in life would to be married and children and all that kind of stuff. And so hook, line, and sinker in that. And then
were you converted because of a relationship, or just because of living there, or what?
I think just social influence. Most of my friends were, and you know, it's just,
but your family was not. So you kind of went rogue.
Right.
Away from your parents and what you had been raised in, and just went, okay, so I'm just,
so no, my family,
it wasn't that you were in love with someone and he was Mormon, and so then therefore you needed to do that because you wanted to be married.
Do you know, there is a little bit of that. I mean, I was dating you know, in high school, I had Mormon friends and a Mormon boyfriend at one point, but really it was just the whole entire social network was sort of in that realm. So for me, my family was a little, chaotic, and we had moved a lot and fractured, and so I was looking for sort of a community and a picket fence, and you know, and sort of the answer to life's big questions, right? Like A plus B equals C, like this could be potentially the answer. So for me, it felt really holistic in terms of the family life, which I was yearning for. So when I look back, I can process
Mormon
that.
families, by the way.
Absolutely.
So this is in no way like
no
bashing the Mormon religion, and I lovely, like, close friends that are very deep in the church that has nothing to do with me, and I still love them, and I might not agree with that, but you know, to each their own.
Yes. And you're absolutely
right. But that's part of your story. So I think that's fair that you throw that in there, and that it's a big part
because there's a
are.
mental construct that happens. So so for me, yes, and no offense against the Mormon church, but my journey is really just that about when I was maybe 29, 28. I just kind of started looking around in terms of my community, and sort of I just didn't feel like it. First of all, it just didn't serve me spiritually once I started to sort of unpack the doctrine and the deep levels of those things. But so, and then I just looked at my community and I thought, you know, I just don't know that I feel authentic, and I don't know that it feels like the people around me are, I just didn't feel aligned. with the church. And so that was a process of unraveling. And then, that was maybe 12 years ago or so. So a lot has happened since then, but it definitely, I always, it wasn't the entire demise of my marriage, but it's definitely a fracture, because when you have, beliefs that are conjoined, and then, you're not on the same page with those same beliefs, sure. It causes a lot of different things. And you start to explore, like at this point, I had not drank alcohol ever in my life. Until I was 29 or so. And so, so for me, it just, and that's just a small example of just things you start to experiment with in terms of your, identity and who you are. Cause I felt like being married so young, first of all, I didn't have an opportunity to date. I dated, he was my high school sweetheart. And, so I really hadn't had a lot of experience in terms of dating or, being an adult dating. And so we were divorced in 2019. And at that same time for me, I realized, and again, he's the father of my children, so I will not speak ill of him because there's really nothing to, but we just divided ourselves in terms of what we wanted out of life and things like that. And so I started to take more on in terms of my career and develop that way, and then a whole different spiritual path. And so we just, I guess, cliche, grew apart in a lot of ways. But we were divorced in 2019, but then for the sake of my children, because you know how us moms are, I wanted to give it another go. And I just wanted to lay my pillow on my pillow at night and know that I had tried everything. So, we were back and forth a little bit, but we did reconcile for a year and decided at that time to move our family. It happened to be during COVID, to Texas. And so we did that together. And then that ended up not working out also, because come to find out, wherever you are, there are your, problems. And so we didn't work out, but so there was a period of time where I was divorced, prior to us moving to Texas, where I would say I did sort of the cliche. I mean, every woman, I think, goes through a point where they divorce and then they just kind of date a lot, right? And you sort of just
seeing what's out there,
and kind of, maybe making some questionable choices and learning a lot along the way. And so I had done that in a period of time where we were first divorced, and when we got back together, obviously I didn't. But then so for me, I had sort of two experiences of dating. So that first experience was a little, probably I would say, more reckless than my second. So then as my ex and I completely separated, this was in about, let's say 21, I started to date again, right? So you do what you do. So now I'm in Dallas, and so I'm on the apps, and I'm like, I've learned so much, and I'm on this journey, and I know who I am, and I know what I want, and I know what I won't tolerate. And, so I went in.
I don't want to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. Sorry. But it's like, here you are. Now you're in your 40s, right? I'm assuming you're
close to.
But there's
at
still
that time
a level of naivete that you bring to the dating world that, okay, you were with one person your whole life, which again, I think that's the goal. Like, no one ever, I love the idea of, you never have sex until you get married, and you're with that one person, and how beautiful and freaking amazing that is to have that connection with one person. And that, I believe, is the goal, period. And so having that, you date a little bit, but you're like, hey, like kid in a candy store, because you have been with one person your whole life, and you're like, look at all the people that want to date me, or wow, this is so exciting, to, what, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. I'm going to, what, this is the father of my kids. I'm going to try it one more time, and let's just see if we can squeeze the juice out of this. And it doesn't work out, and you're like, okay, I'm back in the dating world, still with, I think, this level of, it's naivete as much as, that's the best word, I think, to describe it. And still going out there with a full heart and being like, I believe in love. And so I just think that's so admirable.
Funny, the flip, the coin, the sides of that coin.
Yeah.
You have this like comfort and assurance of monogamy, and then sort of this exciting, reckless side of the non-monogamy. And you try them, and when you're on this side of the coin, you yearn for the other. And when you're when you're on the monogamy side, you're like, this is boring.
And it's
and you want the reckless.
And so I think Crystal's
there's this
stuff
tension always between
well, and it wasn't like, I don't think, and I don't want to speak for you, you can stop me, but I don't think Crystal, it was the monotony of it so much as the there was some lack of effort involved, or some other sort of,
there's always the problems,
the support not showing up, and maybe in bed was great, but it was like the realistic day-to-day, do you have a job kind of thing, like, or are you working to support the household? I think that was maybe part of it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a whole nother episode, but for me, and that's a whole nother episode in terms of what happens when and this actually is relevant, I think, but so I'm glad you said that, because for me, it's sort of the journey of what happens when the woman has to sort of get into her masculine in terms of leading, providing, supporting, traveling, running the home, having all of the weight of
be the mom and
the motor of the home, right? I think that's, and so then there's this shift in terms of, do I feel supported, loved, cared for, or am I being sort of exploited in some way without maybe consciousness on their part? But then that leads to a whole bunch of things, because the last thing that a woman wants in terms of intimacy is to feel like a mother. And I think that there's nothing that kills intimacy faster or quicker, no matter the length of the relationship, than that dynamic, because you shouldn't naturally be, attracted to someone you're sort of caretaking. And so I think that for me, that was a big factor. But then on his end, it felt like he wasn't good enough for me, and so there's this dynamic.
And then it just goes from there, and it's hard to pull it back.
And then people process that negatively in some ways. And then you have these instances that are unhealthy, and it becomes toxic because you're not able to, if people haven't done and can't look at yourself and admit the work, then you act out sideways, and, instead of, the root. And so for us, that was our dynamic. And so he's a wonderful father. It's great, but there's still that dynamic. So for me, when getting back into, and I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up? Was that kind of what you were saying? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it's all all these layers that again, tee you up to
make your future choices, potentially.
Right. And what you're looking for, what you believe, and what you
essentially
believe to be
leaving your
true.
Marriage and what that looked like for you, what you were seeking was sort of a partner that had this, we all seek the partner that has the equal stake, right?
Right.
My output and your output there's an equality there.
Right.
I feel cared for, you feel cared for. I feel provided for, you feel provided for. Whatever that the lion's share of it all, how it all trickles down. You don't feel like you're taking on another child, or having to provide for everybody.
You're
Nobody wants any more kids.
Nobody wants any more kids, and you're looking for a partnership, right? If you're going into it consciously in all the ways.
Also, and just because you can provide doesn't mean that you want to. Doesn't mean that you should take your own desire to also be cared for and provided for. Yes,
right.
And I always see that
is so delicate.
Yes, it's so delicate, because I always see it like, I love my work. I want to work. And I've enjoyed work, but I want someone equally pushing as hard, on that throttle, because it just, for me personally, I do feel like there's, that masculine and feminine, and I can be masculine in my work environment, but I don't want to be that at home as well. And
when you walk through the door, you want to put down the bag and
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Take a minute.
Yes.
Be like,
yes. Yeah. And not that I want someone to be like,
it's exhausting.
You don't get to
being
now.
The man and the woman all the time.
Right.
It's really exhausting.
It really is. And so for me,
I think this is a common theme that we all have. So, in that moment, you really need the partner to show up as a huge masculine because you're like, man, I had to wear the pants all day. I'm also like, there is a piece of me that's the feminine piece of me, and I need somebody to step in and allow me to be
babe,
the girl,
I got this.
and that I don't have to wear both hats all the time.
It's fucking exhausting.
When you
and
have
make
to,
some decisions
when you have
with
to bring
me
that
for me.
home and you're doing it all, it is just a drain.
Yes.
Just a drain.
Yes.
I don't have energy to take my clothes off. I don't have, like, I'm not going to, no. If you show up and you're like, I got it, then I'm like, really? You got it?
That's
I'm like,
sexy. All of a sudden,
Hell
all of a sudden I'm turned on when you tell me this is,
I got it taken care of.
Yeah.
That's the best phrase in the English language.
Fuck
when you're in our situation. I took care of it.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah.
Let's go do this. I planned a date, or I planned, I showed up. If you have a flat tire, I'm on my way.
Or here's what I'm thinking about in terms of our investments, or, this for me, that because I didn't have a father figure who was really leading that way. So I yearn for that trust in a man that I can trust that you're going to, and it's not leading in a blind way. It's that I trust you so much that I know wherever we end up will be good because you're aligned with our needs and you have our best interest at heart. Like
for me, for us, for the
there's
longevity
this collaborative
of this
effort. Like I'm spearheading this. I feel that this is where we need to be rolling and I want your input, but I'm handling it. Like I want to take the lead on certain things, but financial matters, things like that. Like that is such a breath of fresh air when you're a single mom.
Yeah.
It's, so attractive. So attractive. So okay.
So here we are.
So then you go in the dating world and these are the things I'm seeking.
More.
Sure.
You're seeking that.
Right. Yeah. And so I, for me, I think, I know I shouldn't say
you're a hardworking, kick-ass career woman that has 3 kids and you're beautiful and you're like, okay, but I need to find this person that's going to match energy, match desire, match career, match what, you're looking for your match, which is A-okay. There's nothing selfish or wrong with that level of criteria.
There really isn't. There really isn't. And so I met him, and
what are we going to call him?
I know. Joe.
I know.
Call him Joe.
I like to call him. Yeah, Joe's good. Maybe I've saved his name as Rambo in my phone or
really?
Okay. Yeah. So
let's go.
Whatever.
I like it.
So I meet Rambo.
I heard a little bit of about Rambo, so I understand the
reference.
The reference. Yes.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So I meet him, and
through an
app.
We need to do a whole show on apps. I've not done the apps. I'm terrified of the apps.
I thought these are great.
Maybe that's the reason that my relationships have failed or whatever, because I didn't do the app, but I don't.
Yes.
I'm so terrified.
Anytime I dip my toe back in, I'm like, oh God, no. This is why no.
It's pretty enlightening, but I will say that's a whole nother story. How do we meet people, right? When you're a single mom, these days, I don't really want to go out to bars or clubs late at night.
Like wasted time and wasted energy to just.
And then if I do go out, I'm usually with girlfriends.
You want to read the resume and then decide.
Yeah. Right. So I do think there's some beauty in it in terms of kind of like, getting there.
Swipe.
I think what they're meant to do and what they actually do are very different. You know what I mean? Like, because it's easy to hide. The ideal sense of what this app should be able to provide you, which is a filtration system for someone that shares common interests and common, needs and desires, and that you'll be able to be matched with someone that is an ideal for you, is the goal of those apps. But what happens in real life?
I think what they should do is include a background check.
Yeah. Well,
that's a good point.
That's coming
Let's
out.
develop an app.
I don't know if you guys follow Young Pueblo. He's a writer. His app that's coming out is called the Ready app.
Oh.
And it's really for people that are like
ready.
Very much doing the work. The personal development work. They are on that mindfulness journey.
I love that.
As soon as the app is out, you send it this way.
It's also an app that's supposed to be helpful for people that are trying to rekindle or remedy or repair an existing relationship.
Oh, interesting.
Partners draw to one another again in that, you know.
I love that idea. See,
it's very cool.
Hope.
It's
I have
very
faith
cool.
that, you know.
I just saw it on his page because I follow him and love him, and I own a ton of his books.
He's fabulous.
And so he's in development of this. And basically what they were talking about is like, what do you hate and what do you love about all the existing platforms? And so they're just trying to kind of level up the experience to where fantastic. It really is filtered for people that really have a different mindset when they're approaching. Yeah. So anyway, we should.
And that's the thing, you know, that's what you're wondering. Have they done the work? Because at this point in our life, 40, 45, there's, you know, 50, 35. There's stuff, you know, and you have to. Everybody
got a
has
whole
stuff.
big bag of shit.
And it's not about the stuff. It's about what have you done to recognize the stuff, and are you aware how your stuff is affecting you? Like, so you don't really know with these apps, you know, where they are. So then it is a process because you have to sort of meet.
How committed are you to your own mental and emotional well-being?
Right. Yeah.
Big question.
Rambo was not much. So I meet him and it's very normal. And we have, you know, we meet for dinner and then we meet for dinner again. Actually, we talked for a while. He was out of town when we first met with his children on vacation. It's summertime. I'm like, oh, he took like a 3-week vacation. So I'm like, check. He's a good dad. He, you know, he's taking these kids, sending me pictures to all these historical sites and all these beautiful places that he had taken his children for the summer. So initially I'm like, okay, that's great. Cause that's a big deal for me too. I have children. I want them to be a good father, whoever it is, if they do. And so we meet for dinner several times over the course of, you know, a couple months. And, you know, we just have this normal, it's not, and, you know, you read all these things about, love bombing or people diving in or narcissists sort of, you know, love bombing you. It was not like that. It was, you know, we could talk, we could not talk. It wasn't a needy, clingy situation. It was just very normal.
Felt organic and
felt organic. Yeah, it felt organic and it, for the most part, except he did feel kind of emotionally shut off. But, you know, this man had been divorced for maybe about 7 years and he hadn't really, you know, he had dated, I'm sure, but no one serious, you know, that he had introduced to his children or anything like that. And so, you know, we have this courtship that over the course of several months. And I think at some point, you know, now flash forward to the winter, we took our first trip together and, you know, and all these things and again, looking for, you know, a partner that meets the criteria we mentioned. So, you know, he has a job in finance and he owns his own home and he, you know, takes care of his 3 children and he, you know, splits custody and he travels often. And, you know, he went to college and he was a D1 athlete in college and, you know, and then, you know, and then I found out that he had also been, he's from New York and, you know, we talked about 9/11 and how he enlisted for the Army straight, you know, a few months after 9/11. And, you know, just as we're getting to know each other, these are all these things. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, this is this masculine, attractive, articulate, educated. He loves history. So, you know, we would talk extensively about history and things of that nature, which I love. I mean, you have to stimulate me on a mental level as well. And so we had all these things. I was, of course, attracted to him and not only just physically, but mentally as well. And, you know, things were going fine and great. Actually, I was excited. Right. And so organically, after I would say, you know, we took a couple trips. I think we had gone to Mexico and, you know, we at this point, we had not engaged any of our children. But maybe, and I thought I'm doing this consciously, right? Like I'm going to take the time. There's no rush. And, you know,
you're falling in love with this person. You're spending time with them. You're getting to know each other. He's sharing with you that he enlisted after 9/11 because that was such a big deal to him. He played sports in college. He even said didn't he play semi-pro? Did he say?
He played semi-pro hockey. But he had played hockey and football in college and, you know, so I'm like, you know, he had great social circles. He had
3
neighbors.
kids.
Yeah, 3 children,
Okay.
Neighbors that love him. You know, I had at that point, I think at some point had met some of his friends. Right. And so all the things are just fine, just ticking.
Everything's checking out. The way he is presenting himself in this early 6 months, let's say.
Yes. Yeah. I would say 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's a
then
beautiful time
beautiful.
frame to incubate a start of a relationship.
Yes. I didn't feel like we were rushing it. And, and he was always a little standoffish when it would come to questions about, I would have to dig, but I didn't want to dig too far in terms of, his history, let's say with military or whatever. If we were watching a movie, and it was like a war movie, he'd be, oh yeah, this gets me, and kind of inferences. And
he would cry.
He would cry, or maybe just be like, oh, that's how it is. That's hard, and I'd say, do you feel like you suffer from, oh yeah, guys like us, we have history and PTSD and, and I'm being empathetic and just like, I get it, and I don't get it because I don't have a family of military, but I'm trying to get it because like you, Katie, empathically, I'm like, oh, that must be hard.
But you attributed maybe some of his shutdownness to,
right.
He's got, PTSD.
He's managing
he's
got,
right.
Yeah. He's doing all these other things right. He's loving me. He's, showing up for you, like going on trips and being, someone who's interesting to talk to. And I'm trying to fill in the blanks because I'm thinking that's what you're.
Scab.
Right. You're
there.
You're just there and trying to be supportive, but not trying to. And so, so, I mean, I didn't ask like all the details of, give me your worst war story. I mean, no, because you're being sensitive. Right. But I remember on that first trip when we went to Fredericksburg, he got a call from a friend who's like, I'm really struggling. And I was sort of, he and his girlfriend had a thing and he's like, oh, talking him off the ledge and I'm glad you called. We got to stick together, so he has friends that are ex-military as well, sort of calling him. And, so I'm just like, wow, he has done his work because here these people, are reaching out to him. And, so I'm thinking he's processed, a lot, but he's obviously still has trauma from it, And so anyway, flash forward, maybe around 11 months or so, I had talked about him in front of my children. They knew who he was. I felt like it was an appropriate time to maybe integrate in some way. So we took my boys to Top Golf and then, but up until maybe a year in, we had really only spent time when either of us didn't have our children, right? Mm-hmm. So on weekends where we were apart or we weren't, bringing them together. So when he was at his home with his 3, I would be at mine with my 3 and we would be in touch, but we wouldn't really be together. But it's at that time, it started to kind of be like, we should maybe integrate, right? We've been dating long enough and you only have limited time apart. And so you kind of think, well, maybe we'll start to hang out, with everyone. And so he met my children and on, around that same time, this was in the summertime again, I met him and his children for, a trip to Hilton Head. This was the first thing that I realized, or the first time I was like, okay, he's not being 100% honest with me. But while we were on this trip, his younger son, who was about 8, I think at the time, we're sitting there having ice cream alone, just he and I. And he has these 3 children and he mentions, that the youngest, who was 5 at the time, has a different mom and he lives in a different state. And I had no idea. So we had dated a year and I knew he had 3 kids. And when they were together, I assumed they were all together, but he had this other child who lived in a different state with a different mom.
So a 4th.
It was his 3rd.
Oh, this is the 3rd, but the 3rd
2
doesn't live with
lived
the other 2.
Right, right, because they have different mothers. Different mothers.
Okay,
and
didn't mention that. Right?
Did not mention that, and we had dated for a year.
Okay.
So I found this out, but I didn't mention anything on the trip because I didn't want to make it awkward or have any sort of engagement in front of the children.
Didn't the daughter say something during that same trip?
Yeah. So then the next day, the daughter said something similar, like, oh, it's hard to have him around. We don't have him around all the time because he lives in a different state, And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So he comes home. I decide I'm obviously going to confront him about it. He's like, oh, okay, let's talk about it. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I should have. I was just kind of protecting them. I didn't want them to be seen as anything less than a unit. I try to be very cohesive and make sure they're siblings and brother and sister. And, and I just was afraid that he would be judged or, something. It was his reasoning.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I get it. Everyone handles their children and protects their children in, their own way. And if this was his, maybe he just wasn't ready. It's his story to tell. It's fine, but there was, and Karen, we've talked about this. That was the start and sort of the beginning of that little, I think like a jumping bean, like inside your body where it's just like, I forgot about that. Like,
I was saying how like your inner self, like you're like, okay, everything's fine, but Karen on the inside is like, no, like you can't
my crystal
sleep,
on the
like,
inside was like,
dreams.
This is it.
Katie knows this, where it's like, and you're like, it's fine, everything's fine. So during the day, you got your shit together.
Lying by omission is still lying.
Totally. And your internal Karen or Katie or Crystal is like, what the fuck, woman?
Yes.
Do you not see this? And you're like, I got it.
Well, because, and you have to remember, of course, at this point, like all the boxes are being checked, right? Yeah. And I'm in love with him at this point. Like,
too far gone. You're in the deep end, babe.
I was in the deep end. So, I'm like, oh, but okay, that happened, but all these things.
But then you're also like, okay, so there's another mom in the mix. Like,
right.
Where's this? Right. Where does he live? Like,
So then I have all these questions. Did you cheat on your ex? Did you meet her after your divorce? Was there overlap there? What don't I know? How, first of all, also, how can you be kind of like, for me, why would you not have gotten a vasectomy or been, proactive, because it was kind of like,
how did this happen?
Was
it an accident? Were you dating someone for a really long time?
Right.
Was this a one night stand?
Right.
What, as your partner of a year, I think they still owe you somewhat of an explanation. Like,
I think that if you have any plan of having someone in your future for a long-term future, then you have to put all the cards on the table.
You have to.
Especially after a year.
And then I often think how much anxiety was he holding, knowing that I'm hanging out with his children and that could have been revealed. Like, I just don't live in that.
Look at you
Kids
putting yourself in his position right now.
No filter.
But you're
empath.
You're like, oh gosh, he must feel. I wonder how he felt. He was probably so nervous about.
Right.
Fuck that guy.
Yes, I know.
Sorry,
I know. The empath in me is like, I couldn't handle that. The weight
you can't lie, and you're like, oh God, don't say anything.
Yes.
Don't say anything about how he doesn't live here. Don't say anything
I can't imagine putting that on my children either, but, anyway.
Okay, so what else?
So that happened, and that was the beginning of a shift in him. It was interesting because when I confronted him about that, we had this conversation and it was fine. But the very next day, I think it was his birthday at the time, but I remember this was the first time that, and we had dated for a year, but he sat me down and just gave it to me in terms of what he's not getting out of our relationship. And, I need to show up more and I need to, and it was really weird because it was coming literally the next day after we had talked about the
shift in his dissatisfaction of your.
He's like, oh, his mask slipped. Let me tell you what you're not doing.
The mask slipped off.
Right.
And now
the mask slipped off.
To divert
the attention. I look back now and it's very clear. Yes, it's very clear. And so it was literally the day after we had discussed the child. And then it was just, I don't think I need this from you and I need more. And, you don't, you haven't offered to maybe pay when we go out on dates and just all these things. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like it was, and I look back now and it's clearly just, the pressure was on him and switch it around, Oh, and then
he couldn't handle the microscope being on him, so he had to shift that.
Yes.
Turn it around on you.
So we worked through that, but that was the beginning.
It's like when a cheater is accusing you of cheating.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Don't
look at me. Don't look at me.
Don't look at me. Yeah. What are you doing? Right. And and so, for me, that was that we worked through it in terms of, okay, I'm going to move forward and accept this. And, and then we dive into this whole dynamic of the truth of, the conversations with his, other baby mama and all that kind of stuff. And, and I'm just like, okay, I'm here for it and I support it and, whatever. But he started to get from that point just a little bit more emotionally dysregulated, a little bit more controlling, a little bit more dissatisfied, always never content, always anxious. It was like, it was a shift.
Energy had changed.
Yeah, it was a big shift. And so I don't know, but we continue, right? So we start to still, get the kids together and try to integrate as much as we can. So anyway, let's see. So we continue to date, and over the course of that next several months, probably 6 months or so, there was just little things, because now I have a distrust, right? And so I'm picking up on certain things, but I would say over the course of maybe the next 6 months or so, there would be instances like we had, I had met his parents. There was one weekend, I think it was maybe Memorial Day, like had just passed, and he was gone and I was here, and I had sent him a message, like a flag and like a quote, and just like, hope you have a great, because this is a day, right? He's an ex-vet, and it's a day for them of remembrance. And so I had sent him a message. And then I don't think I had text the rest of the day, but I remember he called that night and this is a really hard day for me, and you haven't been here, and you haven't shown support for me, and you're not here for me, and this is, hard. And, I'm here with my dad, who has also had served in Vietnam, and, and you're just not here. And you're just not here mentally, right? And so I was like, again, empathic. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to show up for somebody who has PTSD, or maybe. And he's like, maybe you should read a book on, on how to handle PTSD or this kind of thing, So of course I did, because I'm an empath in that way. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to support.
A book.
I read a book about, relationships with someone who has PTSD and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm just trying to put in the work to make this work. And of course, you have all these layers of not wanting to fail again, and not wanting to be,
you're invested now.
You're invested.
It's been like almost 2 years at this point, right?
Yes, about a year and a half or so. And so, but there was some weird things. I mean, he had, on all accounts, it's like, okay, so he had his closet full of, Army uniforms with his name on it, and boxes, ammo boxes that have his last name, and hats with his name. And he, at one point, we're home alone, and he has this whole drawer in his top of his nightstand, and he opens it up, and, he's showing me all these pins, and awards, and these
medals.
You get medals.
You
get this when this happens. Or a lot of times people like us will carry around a coin in our pocket, and that way, if we get hurt or we're passed out and they find it, they know that we're military. And so I'm learning all this. I'm like, that's so great. That's amazing. It's a whole world I don't know about. And so I'm just like this masculine man. And again, going back to my marriage, looking for something completely opposite, somebody who is really masculine. And, the fact that he is sort of controlling or opinionated in a way I thought was sexy, right? Because it was like, there's that masculine guy, right? And so
he loves me. He's taking care of me. He's
passionate about me. He's taking care of me. And the things that you were saying in terms of, this is how we have to move forward in order to have a healthy relationship. We have to connect and talk all the time. It was just a lot of control. And I wasn't ever reaching out enough, because I was too, I have to be first, and not your work, and not, and it's like, oh, but I'm providing for my kids, and that's a hard position for me to be in, because I do need to work. But if I didn't call enough or whatever, and I'm thinking, oh, that's sweet, right? Like, he loves me. He wants to
hear
connect
more from me. It's flattering. Yeah.
It's flattering. Yeah. So, his daughter, though, whom I think was about 11 at the time, was very, she had mentioned several times in my presence, like, Dad, you were in the military? Wait, Dad, you were in the military? Like, sort of questioned it a few times. And I thought that was strange, because I was, yes.
And how did he answer her?
He would say, oh, kind of like downplay it. Oh yeah, Dad's done a lot of things, and I don't talk about it much, but yeah. So it wasn't like, he would address it, but just kind of downplay it. Almost every time it happened.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Can we spoil it?
Yes.
Let's do it.
So, tell about the parents.
Oh, so then another time we had visited his parents, and it was, I think, Veterans Day or something. But I said something to his mom like, oh, we're celebrating our vets, and she's like, well, he's not a vet. And just kind of stood up and walked out of the room. And he's like, hey, his mom
said that?
His mom. And he was kind of like, Mom, don't start that kind of thing. And, you know, it just kind of blew over. And then we took a trip with the kids.
So basically she's just trying to be like, he has a sick fascination with the Army, but he's not in the Army.
I don't really know. I don't know what she knows and of what he was saying and what the
inference of all of that meant.
Mm-hmm.
You were just sitting there going,
I was like,
the way you described it to me was like, she was just very innocently like, you're not a veteran, like walked off, but had no idea to the length of
the bomb she dropped. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Right. And so a couple of these things were sort of like, there's just something off. And I remember talking to my friends about it. My friend Nina, who I'm, you know, my best friend. And I was just like, I don't know, just something's off with that. Yes. And then we had taken a trip with both of our children, or all of our children, and we went to an Air Force museum. And, you know, we were talking, because again, he loves U.S. history. So it's very embedded. It's all embedded in his personality and his persona. And it's, you know, so when we're on vacation, we go to this Air Force museum. And again, his daughter says, there's like a retirement ceremony happening in the background. And she says, Dad, you were in the military? And I said, yes, Dad was. You know, I don't know why you keep asking this. Is there a reason why, or why you think differently? And she said, well, I asked my mom and my mom said no. And I remember right then and there, it was kind of like that situation where I found out about his other child. And I was like,
you're like, huh?
Yeah. And so I did confront him about it. And I said that later that night, I said that there's something going on, and, you know, I want to know, I'm going to find out, you know, so you might as well tell me, you know, did you get dismissed or whatever? And, you know, he didn't admit it. And he just said, I have no idea. And I mentioned his mom, and I have no idea why she would say that. And I have no idea why my daughter would say that. I don't know. And, you know, but
wouldn't he also point out like, oh yeah, we used to do this over there, or my company did, you know, this thing with a group of guys, and
Yes. Well, he claimed that he was an Army Ranger. And so when we were at one point in South Carolina, he said, oh, you know, there's where I was stationed, and there's where the bar that we would hang out with when I was in Ranger school, and, you know, and guys like us, and, you know, we've gone downrange and all the things, whatever. And
all the terminology.
How insulting this is to people that have served in the military. I'm sorry.
I was gonna
for
say,
every veteran that's out there listening, if you're a man or a woman, like this man is a disgrace.
Disgrace.
He is a disgrace.
Disgrace. Because it wasn't just like, oh, I misunderstood. It was so in his fabric.
Intention. I mean, the clothing in the closet with his name on it, all fabricated.
He has all the stuff. I just
yes,
he has coins and medals and all that, all fabricated.
And maybe they were his father's, who has the same name. I don't know, but these uniforms were not from Vietnam. They were from, you know, they have the patterning of like Iraq or you know, Afghanistan, and so it all made sense to me. But anyways, and so I ask him about
He's
it.
Still denying it.
But at this point too, our relationship was it was strained because there was so much pressure. He wanted to move in. He wanted me to sell my home and move in with him, and nothing else was good enough. And if I didn't do that, I must not love him. And, you know, I just could never do enough, and it was never enough. And there was a lot of control and pressure.
Where he lived and where you lived? Were you like
20
in the
minutes?
Same town? Okay.
20 minutes. And for me, I have children in high school, so I really didn't want to move, but there was just a lot of anything that could be pressurized was pressured. And again, I'm telling you, after I found out about his son. So it was just interesting because there was a lot of control things. I remember he had a friend over at the home that was staying with him for a few weeks. And he and this friend and I were having just a 5-minute conversation about something silly, something spiritual, actually. And he pulled me aside and said, you cannot talk to my friends like that in my home without, you know, I wasn't involved in that conversation. Just like a control. There was, and I remember I tried to walk away, but it turned into these things where, you know, you have these crazy making conversations, and all night long you're bringing something up, and then all of a sudden, you know, you don't love them enough, and now you're defending that, and it's just this really weird gaslighting, manipulation, kind of controlling stuff. And so that had happened. I had asked for space. I wanted to break up for probably a couple months. I just said, and honestly, none of my friends liked him. My own mother didn't like him.
Inner knowing that you had to back away.
The jelly bean was inside me, like you've got to get out.
Don't you hear me? You're not listening. You're not listening.
And I remember we would lay in bed at night, and I would like wait for him to fall asleep, because I would just feel like that little jelly bean would just calm down. I was just so like kind of anxious, but felt like
okay, he's asleep now.
Yes. But and so sad, right? So sad. And here's the thing. I felt like I was being so conscious, and I'm smart, and and all these things that I didn't want to be. And then you find yourself sort of getting sucked into this
and there's
dynamic.
An element of kind of feeling stuck with your own choices. You're like, I put myself here. I made my bed.
It's the guilt thing again. How did I fall for this? You
sort of come to this moment of like sort of some shame and guilt in your own way, being like, I'm a better judge of character than this. Mm-hmm. I should have seen whatever, but now I'm so deep in. What do I do?
So deep.
Well, so were there any other skeletons?
Well, and I think also, just to piggyback on what you're saying, also from my upbringing, and my marriage, it's like you fight hard and you keep going, and everything's workable.
Yeah.
Give me a challenge and I'll overcome it. And so in a way I was fed by that. Like, I will soften him up. He just has not been in a relationship for a long time. He's got PTSD
in his life that has yet to be undisclosed.
No one's loved him like I have. They didn't know how to love him like I do. Can
I just tell you how many times I've said that? Like,
the empath in me would be looking for the wound behind the fabrication of this veteran story and be like,
why do you feel like
heal that so that he can let go of this giant lie that he's been carrying for this whole time? Like, how can I see this quality human behind this mask.
Facade?
How can I help him heal so that I can get the real him and not the fake him? I see glimpses of the real
Katie.
him. It is really fucked up, but it's like this person that I just want to fix and help and heal, and like I see all these amazing, beautiful qualities in you, and yet I know there's this brokenness, and there's something broken there, and maybe if I love you enough, we can get past that, and I can help you get there. When everything in your good sense is like, run.
What is wrong with you?
Run. And for me, and I think that's the lesson, or one of them, is just that intuition was there. I mean, it was there fairly even early on.
It was there 6 months in.
I would say.
But then
how he was presenting himself was,
You're like, no, I need to just believe.
I haven't been in enough relationships, right?
Yes.
Right. You're the rookie. But you don't know. You don't know. This is your freshman year, honey.
Yeah.
Another friend did a background check because thought all of this was just a little too sus. And so did a background check and was like, I did this, and I just had this suspicion, and I was hoping that. She's like, let me tell you, I was hoping I would see it and be like, oh, it's some sort of like he's MI6 or something, where there's no evidence on the surface, but really he was like, maybe he was undercover, he was some like
or maybe he got dismissed for some reason, which is okay. Or maybe he got dismissed, or went but didn't finish, or whatever, and that would be okay too. But just tell me,
she still has this hopefulness, so she gets the background check, and you confront him with the background check officially, right?
Yes.
It wasn't just like
how
he
did
said,
this
she
all
said.
end?
Yes.
How did it all come to an end?
So I confronted him with the background check, and then and he was trying to talk circles around it, but then he just readily admitted, I said, were you an Army Ranger? He said no. I said, did you serve in Iraq or in Afghanistan, after 9/11? No. And then at that point, I mean, that was so shocking. I just said, don't ever talk to me again. And like, I just freaked out really, because again, Katie, all these things about the person that you think they are, they're still true. I mean, there's still such a good part of him, but then to hear that and know that you could lie.
Love, the day-to-day interactions, all of that is still very yummy and wow.
Yes.
But then the thing is, he didn't say, you say these things about, say, who you are that have nothing to do with anything. It's not like, to me, I say that about my kids lying or something. Again, lie about something
I just look
big.
At it like
lie about something to get out of something big. Don't like these little lies. When you have little lies, that's way more disturbing to me than be like, oh, I didn't do the thing. It's because the little lies, it's the pathological, like it's that the pathological. Is fucked up versus like, I didn't just crash the car. That's a big thing. If you're gonna lie, save the lie for the big thing where it's like grandiose, not like these little, like he had no reason
right, because
to
it's
lie.
Like, why, right?
It wasn't part of anything.
Well,
it wasn't like, hey, I'm getting veterans benefits. It was, oh yeah, that's like, because it's like part of his persona. It's part of his masculinity. Like it had nothing to, he wasn't like using it to get her. He wasn't using it as like on his personal profile, right? Crystal?
Right. He did not.
Oh yeah, I served. It was an add-on.
Like, why can't you just stand on your own life that you had to add to it? Like, I mean, he has great without kids, all of that.
Right. You're enough. You're enough.
Like, what part of you would think that I would need that?
I creep into that, and I'm like, how can we heal that? How
can
we heal that and move on?
Yes.
You're totally and I'm like, enough, babe.
Yeah.
Let me support you and be there for you and emotionally be there. Like, let's remedy this. Let's work through
it. Katie, I hear what you're saying. And there's a part of me that feels that way too. But then the bigger part of me is, first of all,
capacity to lie.
If you haven't done your work, you obviously haven't done your work because, you have to unravel. Why would I lie? Why would I want to be something I'm not? And I'm not willing to sit around here and go through that self-discovery journey at this point in my life.
It's not my job.
It's not my job.
You got to get so much on your plate as it is to take care of in your own life.
Exactly. And I'm not looking to heal someone or go through their healing journey.
You can't fix anybody.
Right.
An addict, there's nothing different between what he's saying and the things that he's done to a drug addict. You still can't help them.
Have the desire to change.
Right. They have to say,
that.
I'm
and
a
if they don't have that, there's no amount of convincing.
Nope.
Yeah.
And you have to do it for you, not because, man, I need to keep this woman. She's amazing. She's great. I got to get my shit together. You get your shit together before. That's when you say, you know what? I've done some really dumb shit in my life, Crystal. I have had issues with lying. I've not shown up appropriately. And I'm here to be like, this is me, Bear. And I'm here to show humility. And I want a relationship. Like, that's how someone shows up.
That's vulnerability.
I'm not looking for perfection. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for someone who is who they say they fucking are.
Yes, just be who you are.
That's it. Yeah. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Right.
But seriously. I also just think but to that point, there is that part, that good. But then when I look back, the thing that really gets me, it's not just the lie itself, although that is despicable and actually deplorable and can be, it's called stolen valor. I mean, it's illegal. I mean,
go to prison for that.
It's disgraceful.
You go to prison and get, get a fine and go to prison. Like,
somebody needs to turn his ass in.
And just so we didn't disrespectful, like we were saying to all the veterans, it's just really, and then, but the thing that really got me, it's gross. But the thing that really got me was the gaslighting to manipulate sort of me exercising my, my empathic side and trying to understand him and then not being there enough when it's a holiday or I made him a cake, like a flag cake. Okay, this really pisses me the fuck off.
A cake with a flag on it.
I made a cake for Veterans Day
veteran.
with a flag and the strawberries and the blueberries and the whipped cream and, like, who accepts a cake?
He's probably like, oh, right. Thank you for my veterans cake.
And he's just taking it.
He has all the stuff.
Here's where my brain goes. My brain goes
on the patches. Who does that?
This
isn't like I went to Party City.
It's pathological.
And I got a bunch of stuff and I'm dressing up for, like, no, it's
Halloween.
Like I got the boots. I got the ammo case with my name on it.
The
Velcro.
The guns.
Like, that's fucking bizarre.
It's bizarre. Bizarre.
That is demented, and that's like, I'm like, you don't know what this guy will do.
So this is where we're at. This is where we've arrived. We've gone from like empathy and let's help him, and and now I'm fearing for my safety.
See, that's what I'm saying, Katie. You go through this whole thing because at first you're like,
oh my gosh, what's happening in your own brain? Going, if I end it with this guy, is he going to come for me with all those guns? And
did I out him? All the stuff. Did I out him? And now he knows, right? And you never know with someone. You're going, and now that's the crazy.
The fragility of your feminine is there, and you feel that. So the more
we're talking about it, the we're looking at each other like, okay. You need to like.
You're
do
like,
you have a gun?
I need cameras in my house.
Yes,
I need. Oh god,
so
that
I'm
makes me
like
sick.
looking it up. Sending her links. She's buying the cameras. Next
buying
day,
cameras.
setting it up, sending us pictures. Like.
Not knowing if he's going to show up at any moment. Is he going to be angry? Is he going to be, is this going to make him snap? Even though I thought I knew him, but again, there's so many levels of that, right? Because you're sad about the relationship, but then you're sad about the person you thought they were, but then you're sad about the kids, and then you're sad that actually his whole identity is who knows now.
Like you're mourning someone.
So did he just disappear?
No. So he. So that when I found out, just because I know I sound like a scorned ex, but I had to call call his ex-wife because we are on good terms and we had met and all the things and several times. And I called her just to get sort of a frame of reference and said, I know this is probably going to sound crazy, but I've just found some information out today and I need some validation or some confirmation. Was he in the military? And she said, absolutely not. Like we met a year or so after college. I don't know when he would have done that. He's always wanted to. He's always, talked about it that he should have or wished he would have, but never had. And so right then and there, I felt for her children. These children think their dad has served and they're confused because they've asked him several times. And it's it's confusing. And so I just thought, for the sake of her children, that she should know that this is bigger than just a fib, but like we said, more of like a false identity type of thing. So anyway, when she found out, she was shocked as well. But so there was a couple days I didn't reach out to him, but over the course of several months, of course he's been apologetic and I don't know why I did this and I'm in therapy and I'm working on it. And I think what we had is worth saving and we should rebuild our connection and trust and, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, I can't integrate him back into my life and have him again. What was I looking for? I was looking for a masculine, honest, good example for my children. I don't need someone to be a father to my children, but if they're going to be in my life, they need to be someone that my children can look up to.
You need to show
and I can't
yeah,
have someone like that around my boys, You
can't have someone around that you don't trust. Period.
So he tried to get back into your good graces by proving that he was doing all the work, but you held your ground.
Yes, he gave me a book that said, I love you, but I don't trust you. Will you read this with me? Yeah. Well, will you read this with me? And
you're like, I'm still reading the book about the PTSD.
I'm
Sorry,
still on the PTSD. Yes. No, but the funny thing about that is I opened that book and I, immediately it was like, here's the thing and the takeaway for people, or I hope. For me, I had spent so many years fighting and working at a marriage at this point in my life. Whether it happens or not, I do not want a relationship. I don't care what the circumstance is, but I don't want to be working on a relationship the first several years into a relationship, right? Yeah. If you are working on things and rebuilding trust,
no one has time for that.
No one has time for that.
Oh,
and if I had 20 years and 3 kids,
dedicate so much of our energy and time to our own survival, right? Like it's like when you're in your 20s and you're building everything, you're young,
you're living, you're like learning things together, you're growing
you're in your 30s
together,
and 40s, and you are surviving, and you have so much more responsibility to your children, your career, your home, your finances, everything. Having a project on top of all of that is just an immense amount of resource and immense amount of just exhaustive just investment in, and it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere or it has any prospect, it is it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to just want to even maintain that energetically. It's just your pie is sliced only so thin, and then you're like, I have nothing left to give.
Absolutely. And I think, I think that that's the, so if I had any.
So what's the takeaway? What is like the big,
The takeaway is a background check. And to anyone listening who's an app developer.
And a background check? Oh,
number one.
We need an app developer
or just
that has a background
which
check
is Karen's plan.
built in. Just be.
I don't know. I think it's sad to say that, but
Karen
it's
and I are
true.
going to be the golden girls. We've decided.
I'm okay with that.
I'm up for either a golden girl plan or being alone, but I'm definitely not up for a project. Okay.
No. I am my own project. I'm still working on me, and healing is not linear. We talk about that. It's like, yes, I'm doing the work. If you come to me and you're not perfect either, great, because I'm a shit show as well. But
you better be aware of it.
Front with my shit, and I share my shit, so I expect the same of someone else. And I think that's the takeaway. Is
I think in order to achieve balance in this podcast, our next guest has to be someone with a success story. Otherwise, we're all gonna be bitter fucks, is what we are.
I know.
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter.
I am.
I'm not bitter.
I'm bitter
no,
for
you're
you.
not.
I'm bitter on your behalf.
Yeah, but it was, and I
gosh.
would just say for me too, the caution tale. I mean, I fell into that trap of, wanting so badly the opposite of what you have in your relationship, in your long-term marriage, let's say, into your first long-term relationship, and how you pendulum swing that so far, because I, was blinded by, I wanted to feel my own femininity. And so I was blinded by this masculine, which was probably more of a toxic masculinity in a lot of ways.
Fake.
It's fake.
So now that you've had your marriage experience and then you've had this other experience trying to chase this pendulum going the other way, what are you looking for now? Taking all of the sum of the totality of these experiences, what is most important to you in terms of the value system that you're looking for in a partner?
I think, and that's a great question. I don't know that I have the full answer to that, because I
always say until you can really get clear and clean on exactly what that is, you have to manifest that into your life.
Yes.
And without literally writing it down in the greatest detail, it will never happen.
But I think the one thing I was
strokes.
missing,
Give us that.
Yeah, I think the one thing I was missing was the peace within myself with that person. There was that little jumpy thing. I think that was my intuition, which I did really learn. I mean, I've always had that, and I can look back all over my entire life and know that had I listened to my intuition, things may have been different, or maybe I needed to learn the lessons in which I didn't listen. But I think hearing that, being in tune enough with yourself and your body, enough to know, am I at peace? Do I feel peaceful with this person?
Yes.
And I want that. And so in terms of what they are on the outside, of course, I have a list of, the worldly things that I want them to sort of be like, but ultimately I want their soul to be peaceful with mine. And so I think listening to that intuition was something that I learned that I need to do. And I think, to your point, Katie, when you are empathic, or when you are kind, or when you do just innately see the good in someone, because I can tell that that's how you guys are too. It's really, that gets really cloudy, because you think that you need to sort of disregard your feelings in order to sort of help or heal or see the good in them.
Because you feel, and you want to excuse this bad behavior or this feeling that you're feeling. You want to dismiss it. That's happening inside of you, which is a real indicator of what is about, it is an indicator of what you will get more of. It absolutely is. But you want to dismiss that in order to help the other person overcome whatever it is that you think that they're looking to overcome and fix. And
we can't fix people.
We can't fix people. But I will say that the one thing too, for me, I
just wish they would be transparent.
I know.
We all posture a little at the beginning of a relationship because we're all putting our best foot forward. But at the same time, it's like, we don't have time to waste. We're in the second half of our lives. Just be who you are. Present yourself with the utmost clarity. if you're a hot fucking mess, just be a hot fucking mess.
Just be a hot fucking mess.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
and
I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, for me, yes, I think that just the wanting to sort of see the good in him, and there is a lot of good, but I think it just, it clouded me a little bit, but I will say that I did sort of have enough faith in, the universe or God or whatever. I remember just knowing, Crystal, you're so far in this and you're so empathic and you're not listening to that voice. And I remember even just, meditating, praying, thinking about this, like the universe or God or source or whomever you want to name it will have to intervene because I know I'm not strong enough to do this. And then this whole background check thing came to light. So for me, that was really, I had asked for sort of some guidance and some intervention because I knew. And so even just being in touch with yourself enough to know what you need to ask for, I knew I couldn't do it on my own.
Asking for that intervention is so critical.
Make it be clear which direction I'm supposed to move. Those are the prayers I say often, like just point me in, God, whatever your will is, point me in that direction. Make it obvious. So if there's a decision to be made,
question.
Make it obvious to me.
You feel super solid about that. Yeah.
Yes.
No.
And
exactly.
I think it's so important too for me that to surround yourself with women or friends that you can trust and that you walk through this path with you. That's the other thing. I mean, had I not had good girlfriends and that sort of were the kind of girlfriends that don't just agree with you but sort of call you out and say, this isn't this, something's off here. And this is not you. My really close friend, we were talking about, I mean, we see beautiful, strong, articulate, astute women get in these relationships where they lose their power, and they lose their self. And, I have several friends that have gone through this and I remember my one friend just saying, I don't like the way you're showing up in this relationship. This isn't who I know you to be. So it's not that I don't like him. But I just don't like who you are showing up to be or who I know you to be. And so when you have friends like that, and if you don't, seek those people out because man, if you're open, willing enough to listen to that, without criticism, it makes you a better person. And
Crystal,
they're loving you.
Thank you so much for being here today. I have one last question. It can just be a yes or no. Are you ready to date again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big,
I love that
level of vulnerability, and I want the best for you. You're awesome. So
you are awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I know it was not easy while you were going through it. And when if I show up laughing, it's because the ridiculousness of just the level of lies.
Catfishing.
There wasn't one lie. It was all like, he kept going with it. He had all the stuff. Stuff.
Yes, I know.
Thank you for being here.
You deserve everything. And
you do.
I always that song, the I Can Love Myself Better song, the Miley Cyrus song, is such an anthem for so many of us at the same time. Flowers. It's like know that you've got you to love you, even if you don't have someone else to. And
3 badass boys at home that are thriving, and that's we gotta get through that,
And I would say the self-love piece, right? Like that is, I mean, I won't speak for him, but had he had self-love, this wouldn't happen. Had I had enough self-love that I could listen to my,
way earlier.
Right.
Yeah,
and so, and there's,
found out or
and I'm much better at that than I used to be in terms of self-love. So, but there's obviously more to go. Right. And that's what it is. It's just, you have to love yourself enough to walk away when it doesn't feel right. And also not worry about like hurting their feelings. I still struggle with that a little bit, right? Like we go on one date and I feel like I owe them like an explanation of all the reasons why, you're great. You're awesome.
Me, it's not you.
It's, but it's like, it's just,
it's okay.
Not a fit. And I love myself enough to know that. And I'm going to listen to her. So yeah.
Good.
Well, good for you. Thank you so much for being
here.
Thank
you guys.
You're such a breath of fresh air.
You guys too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye.
Oh, I love her.
Mm-hmm.